Hey guys.
How are you, Maciej?
Hey, nice to see everyone today.
It's always wonderful to see you guys. You guys are, really great, and I'm really happy to have this experience to share our mutual wisdom. And I mean, there's just so much that you guys are always sharing to help the people, like to help our fellow students. And today's topic is really difficult. We're doing CAEL Academic Unit A.
Hey. That's a challenging one, and I'm actually very happy that you're doing this, and we're here to, give our support, but it is pretty challenging.
It is the hardest part of the CAEL test, no
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah,
Um, I find that some students have problems with like the short reading tasks because they're kind of like a little bit tricky, like you have to have the short, and they look misleading. So, but academic unit A is by far the hardest part. And it really combines the three essential tasks: listening, reading, and then the writing, which is the long writing. And it's so challenging. And Anna, you have your strategies. And I'm so happy to have Anna here to share her experience because in terms of the academic units A writing, people do things a little bit different, you know? And you have your own strategy, and I'm really happy to pick your brain a little bit about that writing strategy because you have this really simple approach where you just have
yep.
kind of like a balanced response. I'm a little bit more complicated about it. I keep to that method because it's 250 words. But Patrick, you recently finished. You did a whole mock CAEL test, right?
Yes. Yeah, I did it twice. I did it once in person in Vancouver pre-COVID, and then
Mhm.
I just learned today I did one online because we have that great free sample test that you could take on the
Yeah,
website.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the sample tests are great. And again, I recommend for everyone to actually purchase those sample exams, but not to necessarily do them because I've met a lot of students who have done these academic tests, like they've done the sample test, but they still continue to fail because they don't have a technique, they don't have an approach, they don't have how to approach this particular tasks. So any case, let's go ahead and get started here. Again, I'm just kind of doing a bit of a preamble here and waiting for more students to join us today. But for us today, we are going to do a quick overview of the academic unit A, just a quick overview. Then we're going to do the long reading strategies, long listening strategies. And again, these are long reading and long listening strategies that I've tried myself. I always come from the perspective of what I would do, but also I've always shared this with other students. And when my students give me feedback, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't work, and there are so many different approaches to this. I look at the long reading and long listening strategies because they're so important. And I try to strip them down and keep them as fundamental and easy as possible. So this is kind of like a McDonald's version of how to approach these tasks. There are different strategies, there are different approaches. They don't always work for everyone, but I would say this is the most stripped down version of it. So this is kind of like a very general perspective. And then we're going to look at the long writing strategies and format and see a sample response. And then we're going to do a long writing task analysis. So we're going to look at an example of a long writing. And then after that, we're going to have a bit of a Q&A session. And in that session, anyone who's attending this particular presentation will be able to ask questions and will be able to respond from a customer service perspective And again, just a quick little overview for those who are joining us right now. Patrick Maccarone has been working for Paragon for at least 6 years, 7 years now.
Time flies. It's been many years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been like 6 or 7 years. And Patrick has worked mostly in customer service. So
Yep.
he's a very good listener. And he's got a lot of feedback and a lot of experience from students who felt that this was particularly challenging or this experience was like this. Anna Baxter, of course, is a teacher. She is an educator. She has years and years of experience teaching standardized language proficiency examinations, including CELPIP and CAEL. And again, she's kind of like my foil in this presentation. So I will introduce certain ideas, but Anna's always going to be bouncing back and bringing something, forward, saying, okay, maybe this could be a little bit different. And it's always great dynamic.
Always happy to help out.
It's always nice when we're all three together.
Yeah.
And my name is Maciej Blaszyk. I've been an English teacher for about 15 years. I am the director of Summerhill Online Academy, which is a post-COVID language school. It's an online language school, which focuses on standardized language proficiency examination for permanent residency, citizenship, and post-secondary education in Canada. And I'm always happy to have this opportunity to meet with Patrick and Anna. And today I'm hoping that this particular session will be valuable to as many attendees as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. So Academic Unit A. Without a doubt, I think this is the hardest part of CAEL. There's Academic Unit B, which you expect to be easier, but there's a short writing task. And there's a speaking on the listening or speaking on the reading, which I find is a little bit more easy. But for Academic Unit A, there's a lot of critical thinking skills that you have to take. Like it's, so basically you're doing a reading, which is a 20-minute long reading, about 11 questions. And then you're doing a listening, right? Again, 11 questions. And then you have to combine the reading and listening and do a long writing. And what's really challenging, I think, about this task is that the writing is on a topic that isn't asking you to just repeat the facts of the listening and the reading. It's asking you to integrate the listening and the reading, but in a very critical, outside of the box kind of way. But in order to succeed in the long writing, you have to really have a high comprehension of the reading and the listening. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to critically engage with that material and produce a long writing. So let's go ahead and start with the long reading. So here's an example of a long reading. So basically in Academic Unit A, you get a reading and a listening about the same topic. They're not the same, it's not the same piece of information, but it's basically the same topic and it's completely random. Like you can't predict this. It's very hard to predict those kinds of questions. But with the long reading, here's an example. It's sexual selection, definitively academic topic. And you have 20 minutes to do it. Guys, any strategies? What are your strategies, guys? How do you deal with the long reading? And you get a separate long reading in CAEL, right?
Well, for CAEL, usually if you're able to read each day, even if it's for 15 minutes, 20 or 30 minutes a day, just to help you to develop more vocabulary, that would be tremendous because it is important to develop your skills. And one way is to continuously read if possible.
So what can you read?
Well, there are various topics. I mean, I think for this case, because it is an academic topic, if you're able to read things, even if there are things that you enjoy reading, if it's whether it's sports, like Patrick, he's really into sports, but
Mhm.
if you're able to read articles or, for example, for newspaper articles like the Times magazines, if you're able to read those type of articles, then that will help you increase your vocabulary. Plus, if you do it on a daily basis as a routine, then it will definitely increment your knowledge as well as your skills, and you're developing more vocabulary as well.
Scientific American, National Geographic, Maclean's Magazine, Forbes, all excellent pieces of literature. And I find that like on the internet, you find so much stuff that's not really that high quality. So I would recommend reading something like that. Invest in a National Geographic, like that's great. They're excellent articles, excellent vocabulary, and very similar, remarkably similar to the kind of level that you listen to CAEL. But let's start with the strategy. So this is my strategy, generally speaking. Okay, nice 1, 2, 3 step. Step number 1, skimming. Skimming is a very unique skill. It's not a skill that you use every single day, but basically when we're talking about skimming, it means you're getting the general idea about the article. It takes about 1 to 2 minutes, and you get 20 minutes. You get 20 minutes to do some skimming, right? And in those 1 to 2 minutes where you have time to skim, it's extremely powerful and you get a lot of information. Skimming is not the same as reading. It's not like you're approaching a novel and you're reading from beginning to end. Skimming means getting the general idea of what the article is about. What's the general idea? What's the topic? What is this about? But also identifying the different types of information in each paragraph. So it's about the organization, getting the general idea about the organization. So important because yes, in CAEL, you get the questions and you get them in the right order. So you can kind of guess that the question 1, 2, and 3 will be in the beginning of the article. And then like question 3, 4, 5, 6, it will be like in the middle article. And you get the rest of the questions will be in the end of the article. But still getting the organization of the article allows you to find that information so much quicker. So for the long reading, I find that it's very important, first of all, to read the introduction. And when you look at the introduction, it's about the topic sentence. The topic sentence is the main idea of the article. And there will usually be a question that asks you about the general idea of the article. Where is this information? The title, but also the last 2 sentences of the introduction paragraph. And then, of course, it makes sense to read the topic sentence of each body paragraph. And there is usually no conclusion in CAEL. There's no concluding paragraph. The long reading is just really an introduction with a bunch of body paragraphs where you just really have to look at the topic sentence. And this is very important because it gives you a general idea of the structure, but also gives you the big idea about what this article is actually about. And there's at least 1 or maybe even 2 questions that specifically ask you about the general idea of the article. So while you're skimming also, you can look through, and again, skimming is a different kind of a skill. You're not reading from beginning to end. You're just kind of reading between the lines. You're focusing on the introduction. You're focusing on the topic sentence of each body paragraph, but you're also looking at the periphery. You're also looking at the general idea, and you're trying to look at maybe some information that pops out. People's names, countries, dates, statistics. Where can you find this? Where's the information about dates, right? These numbers and dates and capital, anything with a capital letter just sort of pops out. And the general idea is that you're looking what's at the beginning, what's at the middle, and what's at the end. And just being able to get through that in that 1 to 2 minutes. And again, for when I'm skimming through these articles, these long readings, it takes me about a minute to do this. But I just look at the big idea and the organization, right? So that's skimming. And that's the first thing you need to do. Before you look at the questions, skim through the article. It saves you time. Step 2. Okay. So again, when I'm looking at the long reading, I'm looking at the title. I'm looking at the body paragraph. I'm looking at the topic sentence of each body paragraph. And just doing that, it gives you a lot of information. It gives you a lot of information. Step 2, surprisingly, I read everything. And I know that there's a lot of approaches out there. There's a technique there. You skim through the article, and then you look into the question, and then you just kind of search through the pieces of information. I would never do this with an academic unit A. You have to read, and you have to listen, and then you have to write about this. And I mean, generally speaking, as a native language speaker, I find that I would need to read the entire article from beginning to end. But skimming actually opens your mind and makes you more receptive to reading it. A lot of us, when we are approaching these topics, you might have found this, Patrick, Anna, and this happens to a lot of us. We're given a random topic, something that we have to read about. Okay, in this case, it's sexual selection. It's out of nowhere. It's not something that we are interested in. It's not a topic that we're, we searched for. We're given this topic and we need to be interested in it. So many times you're starting to read something and you completely just stop, you get off focus. And this happens to a lot of us when we're reading a topic, we're reading about an article, and just after one or even 2 paragraphs, we're like, oh, what was I just reading about? I just lost focus. So you have to go back and read again from the beginning. But if you're able to skim, you actually open up your mind and make it more receptive to reading the article and absorbing more. So skimming is one of the most powerful things you can do for comprehension. Any feedback there, guys?
Oh, I completely agree with you, because it's important to remember you don't have to read every single word in the passage. So skimming through a text just to try to get the main idea, that is very important. And then later on, you'll be looking for key words that occur throughout the text, but just understanding the context in general, that is extremely important. So skimming is definitely #1 on my list. And for anybody who's viewing us today, thank you for coming. We just wanted to let you know, if you do have any questions, because I did see somebody who raised their hand. If you do have any questions, just go ahead and put it into the Q&A box. So there is a Q&A. Write the questions there, and either Patrick or myself will be responding to your questions. So please keep the questions coming. We'll be happy to help out, and just go ahead and put it in the Q&A box. Patrick, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I agreed. I think that skimming's great. Yeah, because you can get some keywords in it, and you don't, you're not exhausted reading the entire passage, and it can help you just key in on the things that are most important in the reading passages.
Yeah, and just the way that my brain works, if you introduce me to a random academic topic without any preparation, without like any cues, you know, just here's a random topic about like dinosaurs. I will most likely lose concentration because it just, you know, my brain doesn't work that way. I can't just absorb a topic without any context or foresight, but just skimming through it allows me to absorb that topic way, way more. So,
and I know that many people, when they are reading, sometimes if you're reading word by word, you might end up looking at a word that you don't understand, and then you're focused on that word too much, trying to comprehend what exactly it's trying to say. But if you grasp the general idea, that will definitely help you with the responses.
So step 3 is actually answering the questions, which I think is really straightforward for this particular task. CAEL is a very straightforward test. And I gotta say, I've had experience with teaching and being involved with IELTS. There's about 14 different kinds of questions for IELTS reading. Like yes, no, true, false, not given, headings, right? And with CAEL, it's just basically multiple choice. Sometimes you just got, you know, you scroll down, there's different choices, but it's basically multiple choice, and it's not tricky at all. As long as you have a fairly good and honest comprehension of the article, it is straightforward. It's not tricky at all, which is what I love about CAELs. I think it's what I really love about CAEL. It's a very fair test in terms of comprehension. There's nothing tricky about the questions at all, but you have to watch your time, right? What I usually do is with the reading, I guess the most logical meaning and I confirm the answer. It's kind of like, yeah, that's what I do. I just guess the most logical meaning, and 50% of the time it's already correct. Or at least I eliminate some of the options, because some of the options may just be kind of illogical or not very meaningful. So what I usually do is, my approach is I look at the question, then I choose the most logical answer, and then I look through the article and I confirm. And even when I confirm and maybe my most logical answer was wrong, it still allows me to have a sort of a perspective of comprehension about the question, which helps me to find the answer. The other thing you have to watch out for is that you get this tab at the very top, and you make sure you have all of those tabs green towards the end, because it's easy sometimes to miss a particular question. And I guess that's really it. Just make sure you do fill in all of those answers. Does anyone want to add anything about the reading?
No, I mean, I think you've basically covered everything I would have said, because it's so important just to focus on the general idea of the information. Vocabulary will be important, but just don't dwell too much on words that you don't know, and don't get nervous, because I know some people stress out about that, but I think it's just trying to understand, because it is more of a logical type of test where it's based on your knowledge.
Right.
So it's a knowledge skills type test where if you understand enough information, you're able to respond to the information and then go on to the writing section, which you'll explain later on.
And it's a problem sometimes, like when students have emotional issues related to testing. Some people just have emotional issues with this, and again, it's not everyone's really great with tests, but I think that with CAEL, it's actually very straightforward, right? So that's it. That's a long reading. We spend a lot of time talking about the long reading, but it's important, because without doing the long reading and the long listening, it's impossible to do the long writing. But in any case, let's talk about the long listening. Okay, strategies. Anybody? Anna, what's your strategy for listening?
Again, I mean, I think it's very similar to the reading. If you're able to listen to podcasts, I mean, there's so many out there like TED Talks. That's a great way to develop certain skills where you're listening for specific information and trying to grasp what the person is saying. And for this, try to get topics that you're interested in. Try to listen to things. Even if you want to try to be a little bit bold, you can listen to anything and see what you understood, what you learned. Maybe you might find something new that you didn't know before. So this might be a great way to practice, because it's going to be very similar. But in the case here, you will be listening to a professor talk. So it'll be like a first year university experience where there's a lecture, there's a professor talking about a certain topic. And if you can listen to certain things, even if it's either podcast or other types of listening avenues, and that will most certainly help you out.
Patrick, this question is for you, and I guess it's a very deep question.
Aaron, I'm ready for it.
Doing CAEL at a test center or doing it at home? I mean, like, throughout that time, you've had a lot of feedback from the clients that do these tests, either online, from the comfort of their home, relative comfort from their home, or doing it at a test center. Where do you find like you get the least amount of complaints?
That's a great question. Actually, believe it or not, when I transitioned out of customer service, that was when we actually offered the online format of CAEL. So I haven't honestly had the chance to hear that feedback, but really depends on what you're comfortable with. I mean, if you're at home taking the online practice test in that environment, then if you're comfortable in that environment or more comfortable, then maybe look at the online option as opposed to doing it at a test center. But yeah, the online format of CAEL is relatively new.
And they've been have a lot of changes, changes.
Yeah. But I like it. I mean, the opportunity, everybody now is getting more comfortable doing things at home. A lot of people are currently still working from home. So if this is something you're comfortable with, then by all means, and you might feel safer taking the test from home. So I would definitely explore the option.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put it forward there. Given the option, I would always do it at a test center. And the reason is I may not trust my technology, or, I may not trust my internet connection. I may not trust the quality of the audio that's coming through my earphones. And, when I'm doing these exams, if I'm doing these exams, I just want to go in there and focus on doing the exams. And I don't want to worry about having someone, look under my table to make sure that I'm alone, or I have all of the, environment. Again, having the option of doing CAEL online is extremely, I think it's wonderful that we can have that option. And again, I think the general process will improve over time. But I mean, if you feel safe being in a test center, if you're double vaccinated and you feel like, yeah, I can do that. I would say that it would be always better to do it in a test center, because you get all the equipment that's always going to be reliable. It's always going to work. And if something screws up and it doesn't work, it's not your fault.
Well, you're giving great options right now about how you feel. But yes, I think one of the things to point out is that you do have to have a good Wi-Fi connection, make sure that your computer is optimal, that everything is working. And then they do highlight online the differences of taking the test at home and doing it at a test center. And it's best to go through everything. And if you're not sure about how your setup is, then you can also do a stress test, which they'll just quickly tell you if everything is working properly to continue to do the test at home. But then there are some people who prefer not to be with other people. So in the case where Patrick mentioned maybe for security purposes, or I get less stressed out if I'm at home and I'm able to perform better at home than I would at a test center where everything is so confined, then it depends on each person individually. But I really like the fact that you have your preference, and then other people will have their own preference for that.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
important to highlight that there will be differences, and it's best to always double check to make sure where you're going to be more comfortable.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, let's get to those strategies then. Let's go through those listening strategies. So first of all, here's the general strategy for listening. First of all, pre-read to understand the questions. So this is part of the format. You get 2.5 minutes to pre-read the questions. What's really interesting is that I try not to focus or even read the multiple choice answers many times. This is a little bit tricky, because those multiple choice answers are actually quite tricky. They're really, really tricky. So when you're looking at the listening, read the question, understand the question, but you may not have time to read the questions and then read the multiple choice answers. It depends on your speaking, your reading speed at this point. But with 2.5 minutes to go through 11 questions, my approach is usually read the question and then understand the question. Focus on the question more than the multiple choice answers, because your comprehension of the question is really, really the key. So you need to answer the questions as you listen. So do not look at the multiple choice answers as you listen. This is my strategy, and I know there are different strategies involved, but what I usually do is read the question, understand the question, and then when you understand the question, listen to the question. Understand the question, listen for the right answer, and then choose the right choice after you already catch the answer in your mind. So basically, you have to trust yourself in a sense. Multiple choice answers are really, really, really tricky. Like they actually, you don't know what the answer is, right? Read the questions, maybe predict the answers. Read the questions and listen for the answers. And just, if you miss the answer, just go to the next section. This is also very important here. Generally speaking, there might be a chance that you might miss the question. The worst thing you can do in that situation, is try to listen to catch the answer again. There's nothing you can do, right? If you miss the questions, if you miss question 1, 2, and 3, I mean, if you miss question 1 and 2, best thing you can do is go to section 2. Just go to section 2, read the next question, and wait for the answer. You've already missed 3 questions, okay? There's nothing else you can do. But what could happen potentially is if you miss the first 3 questions, you could just keep being, you could be lost for the remainder of the exam. This is why it's so important. You have to maintain that discipline. If you miss that question, just go to the next section, read the top question, wait for the answer. You've already missed 2 or 3 questions. There's nothing else you can do. Any more feedback on that listening?
I think you've mentioned all the right points, because that was fantastic. I mean, it's important to, as you're saying, that if you missed something, don't dwell on that, because the questions will come in a particular order. So you're listening, you're responding, you're listening, you're responding, and you continue. But if you did miss something, continue, because then you're going to miss all the other important information that is present there. So it's great to point that out because it's so important to know that. And try not to, again, dwell on too many vocabulary words that you might not understand. Try to get the whole holistic picture of what they're saying and continue. So respond as much as you can. One of the best things about this test here is that you do have at the beginning time to look over the questions, make sure you understand those questions. And then when you're responding to the questions at the end, you will have more time to review everything. So given that time and knowing that you will have some time left over after listening to the dialogue or the passage, then you will have enough time to go back. And if you need to respond, go ahead and do it, but never leave anything blank. Regardless of if you're not too sure about a question, just make sure you do respond to the questions.
Yeah. It's standardized tests are a numbers game. So it doesn't matter if you miss the questions in the beginning or the middle or in the end. It's just a number. It's as many correct answers as you can possibly create. So if you miss the, the first, a couple questions, move to the next section. There's nothing that can be done now. You have to look at the big picture. Absolutely. And I love that phrase. Yeah, you have to look at the big picture of the exam. You're trying to get as many correct answers. And just could you remind me, Patrick, how many long listenings are there in CAEL?
Long listenings. Actually, do you know how many, Anna, there are?
There is 3 in total. So it's going to be a long listening in the first sections where you have, it's actually part 3, which is going to be a short listening, a long listening, and then a speaking question about the long listening. In this section here, you will have a long listening, and even for the next section for Unit B, you will also have a long listening there.
Yeah.
So 3 in total.
You get a lot of long listening, so you have lots of opportunities to score those points. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here we go.
And just in case people are wondering how many questions there are for the long listening, there are 11 questions for each long listening. In total, there's 11 questions for each.
Are there any questions at this point about the long listening or the long reading before we go into our final section, which is to look at the long writing? Do we have any Q&A questions there, Patrick?
Not so far, but don't be shy, everybody. Feel free to ask us questions.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. You just, just fire.
I know there was a question about the recording. You will receive the recording afterwards. So exactly, I think it's 1 day after the presentation, you're going to receive an email from us, plus the recording will be included. So just in case you're wondering if you missed something, then don't worry, you will receive the recording.
Wow, that's really fantastic. I know, for example, in IELTS, you fill out the questions, you do the reading, the listening, and the speaking, but you never get the recording. You never know how you've done. You never get a copy. Do you actually get a copy of your writing as well?
Well, I was referring to this recording here.
Oh, okay. I mean, like in the CAEL, you don't get a copy of your own writing. Okay, misunderstood.
No.
I thought you'd get feedback when you're listening, and I was like, wow.
I wish we could.
That'd be spectacular, because like maybe I'd like to have a copy of what I wrote in those few disastrously stressful moments of my life as I'm doing my CAEL writing.
Presentation in particular. You'll get a recording for that.
Okay, absolutely.
Great question here from Nora. Can we take notes while listening?
Anna, can you take notes while listening?
You are able to take notes, but as Maciej mentioned, it is recommended to try to listen and respond to the questions, because sometimes if you do take notes, it's not saying that you shouldn't, but if you do take notes, you might end up missing information.
I could
So
not imagine why would anyone want to take notes while listening to CAEL, because you have to answer the questions as you see them.
directly,
So
yeah.
you don't have time. If you're taking notes, there's just too many steps. Keep it simple, stupid. That's my approach to anything to do with standardized tests.
I'm
If
never
you're
gonna
doing
forget
more stuff, if you're doing more stuff than you need to, then you're getting yourself distracted. It's more tasks, more steps, more things that you want to do. You want to do as little as possible. You have to answer the questions as you listen. So the only thing you can do is look through the questions. You can even guess the answers. Just guess the most logical answers. And this is kind of surprising. But as Anna mentioned before, it is kind of, it is knowledge-based. So to be honest, there are many times when, again, I'm a very nerdy person. You know, I'm an English teacher. I'm extremely nerdy. So it is quite possible for me to get 75% of the listening questions correct, even without the listening. Because it's factual information. Okay, we're talking about topics which are like scientific topics or general knowledge topics. You can actually predict the questions 75% of the time. So keeping that in mind, taking notes would not be helpful. You do have time afterwards, and I've not seen this technique be successful. I've seen students do this when they're taking notes and then they're answering the question, but then I have not seen that to be successful.
Oh yeah, Nora just added that in case she needed it for the writing section. To take notes so that she can use them in the writing section.
Then again, I mean, it's as long as you're able to answer as many of those questions correctly, then you can really use that. Like you have a good knowledge of what's going on. I think it's more important to succeed in the long reading and listening. And also, you will be given notes. You'll be given notes about the listening afterwards, which means
that's something to be aware of, especially for the listening section. Anytime you have a question afterwards, so you've completed the listening section, you've answered all the questions. Afterwards, if you're doing, whether it's the speaking part or the writing part, you will have access to the notes of the listening. So there's going to be a summary written down for you about the listening you just heard. So sometimes it might not even be necessary for you to write any notes, because notes will be taken down for you. So it's a summary of what you already listened to. So it's a helpful guide for you.
I'm just gonna say it's not helpful to take notes while you're listening. I think it's a distraction and it's not a good strategy. But you know, everybody's brains work a little bit different. Patrick?
Right on. There was another great question here from Nasser. So the question was, what about if you have a physics topic and you're a business student, so it's not in your expertise? How does that work with the CAEL test?
Well, here you actually don't need to be an expert at any topic. There'll be sciences and arts-based topics, but you're not required to be an expert. And so when you're reading the information, yes, you'll be reading the information for the first time. And whether you have some knowledge or no knowledge of it, the most important thing is understanding that information and then being able to respond to the questions.
Yeah, I agree. And also I would say that, yeah, I mean, none of the, even though all of the topics are academic and they're very specific, especially with academic unit A and B, they're very specific topics. you don't have to be an expert in physics or science or business in order to comprehend those topics.
Yep.
So,
I actually just did the practice test today. And yeah, there was a long reading, and I had all the information that I needed to answer the questions, or if it was like a long listening. So I was given everything that I needed to answer all the questions. So I didn't have to have outside knowledge of a topic to do well in that section.
I'm going to add this. The human brain is very malleable, but the malleability of the human brain depends on, let's say, how frequently you expose your brain to fresh information on a regular basis. So if you feel a little bit, let's say, uncomfortable or apprehensive about being introduced to a topic that you've never read about before, read more and read more different things from different topics, you know, and again, that's going to expose, it will make your brain more receptive to learning or being exposed to information that you're not expecting. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the CAEL. You're going to be, you're going to see a topic, and it's going to be a topic that you did not expect or predict to see. You might be lucky, but yeah. Anyway, let's go to the writing. This is the main part. Oh, this is the hard part, right? So for the writing, my goodness, your professor asks you a question, you'll write an answer on the next page. You have 250 words to do it. You have to integrate the reading and the lecture, the reading and the listening. And again, we just looked at some questions here. We looked at the listening and we looked at reading about sexual selection. And the listening was about sexual selection among birds and other animals. And then CAEL does this to you. It asks you a question like this: does sexual selection occur in humans? Why or why not? Would you think that, and again, you get access to the reading, you get access to the lecture notes, right? So you can review the reading, you have the whole reading in front of you. You also have the listening right in front of you. And you have to combine the reading and the listening into a long writing and answering a topic. And again, we're talking about a reading and listening that had to do with a topic like sexual selection among birds and animals. And suddenly a question comes like here: does sexual selection occur in humans? First of all, Anna, would there be ever a time where you would answer no to that question?
Well, the thing is here, when you're responding to the questions, there's no right or wrong answer. So if you have, from your reading and from your listening, if you're saying yes to something and you're able to back up with that information that you have in the reading and you have in the listening, then that's fine. If you say no, it's the same thing, just making sure you have enough information to back up the question that you're asking.
Yeah, but your job is to integrate the reading and listening. For a question like this, it would be so much more difficult to say no instead of yes, because there's already proof about sexual selection among animals and birds and of all kind. By answering no, you're putting yourself into a difficult situation where you don't want to put yourself in that kind of difficult situation. You want to answer with the easiest answer you can possibly produce. This is a standardized test. Nobody cares what you believe or you don't believe. You're not getting extra points for being smart in this point. I mean, a little bit, you know. Choose the absolute simplest answer you can. Lie. Lying is good in CAEL. Lying is wonderful in CAEL. Choose the absolute easiest answer for you to answer for any of those questions. I mean, one thing I can say about independent speaking, A and B, always lie. I always lie for these kinds of questions because, you know, I don't want to talk about the truth because truth can be complex. But if you choose the easiest angle possible, you'll be fine. And what I always say is when you have these questions, a greatest tip I can do this, I can give here is answer this question, lie, and then get a high score and move on with your life. Do great things. Do great things with your life, you know? But general tips. First of all, remember that you need to introduce your own ideas, okay? You're not just copying and pasting from the listening and the reading. That's not what you're doing. The topic is always going to be about your opinion. So it's your ideas. This writing needs to be driven by your own ideas. And again, what we can look at the rubric here and we can see about the structure. And when you're thinking about a structure, this is going to be an essay, okay? It's asking you to write something that has an introductory statement. It has logical transitions. It's well organized, easy to follow, right? It has paragraphing. Basically, you're doing an essay. That's it. It has an introduction, it has a body, it has a conclusion, right? For the content, important things to remember, right? You need to talk about the reading, you have to talk about the listening, and you have to talk about the reading and listening in a balanced way. And Anna and I have a little bit of a different philosophy about this. Anna actually has a really great idea. I think I'm almost overthinking it, but the way I can think about long reading, so the long writing is I just try to do it. And, you know, I try to do it in the shortest amount of time and in the easiest possible way. But when I think about, you know, how I do my writing for academic section A, first of all, I review the reading and the lecture notes. So step number one, you have the reading and you have the lecture notes. So take a look at the reading and the lecture notes. Identify common elements. What is same in the reading and the listening? What did the reading say that the listening said also? Because that's the easiest way of integrating information. Also, identify different elements. What did the reading say that the listening didn't, and vice versa? Right? What's different? Right? So you're looking through the lecture notes and you're looking through the reading and you're trying to get a kind of a general idea. And I mean, if you're writing a 3-body paragraph essay, and again, Anna has a bit of a different perspective here, and we're so happy to hear her perspective as well. But maybe you can talk about the reading, then you can talk about the listening, maybe you could talk about the listening and the reading. Or if you're lucky enough, you could talk about the listening, reading in each body paragraph, if you find something common. And again, you could just talk about, you don't need to write 3 body paragraphs always. You can just talk about the reading, you can talk about the listening, and that's it. Or you can talk about the listening and reading in both body paragraphs. But you need to keep things balanced. Anna, your perspective.
I love how you put all the information so nicely. Well, it's always a tricky thing here, especially for the writing section as to what you're able to do. And I think for the raters it's trying trying to keep it simple. Don't make it so complicated where then it becomes too difficult for you to write the information.
Right.
Now, what we're looking for basically is a balance. So the raters will be looking to make sure that the content details you've included from the source material is accurate and correct. Now, when we're talking about the actual paragraphs, obviously you're looking for an introductory paragraph. You can have, well, I would recommend 2 body paragraphs, but I know that Maciej has 3 body paragraphs, which is still okay. It's not that it's incorrect. It really will depend on each individual and how much time you have left. And if you're able to add that information, it's okay to do that. On average, you will see more of a 4-part paragraph. So again, you have the introductory, you have the 2 paragraphs, and then you have your conclusion to finish off the essay. But you can definitely have an additional paragraph if you can support the thesis or the introductory paragraph information, then that's great. But again, just be aware, you always have to check the timer, make sure you have enough time. We're saying a minimum of 250 words. So if you go up to 300, but within that time frame, you're comfortable enough to have all that information, then yes, by all means, keep it that way. But if you're crunched for time, you're not sure, and you want to keep it as simple as possible, yet you still have that balance, you have that right information that you need, then the 4 paragraphs will be enough.
Yeah. For me, it would be impossible to just write 250 words. I would always have to write more, just to extend the idea and to get the idea across. But generally speaking, and again, this is a tip, and again, we're kind of limited by our time in this presentation. This is not an easy task, and the next step here is not an easy tip. It's not a tip that we can just learn in 5 minutes, but it's all about the thesis statement method. You don't have time to write an outline. You don't have time to do a Venn diagram and start making notes. I'm just not into, I never recommended making an outline on a piece of paper. You're given a piece of paper and a pen, and you can make notes, and you can make an outline there. But the easiest, simplest thing to do is the thesis statement method. Now, the thesis statement basically answers every part of the question. The thesis statement provides your clear position. And a good thesis statement is like a map that predicts the structure of the essay. So one thing that we do at Summerhill Online Academy is we make our students really, really good at writing thesis statements very, very quickly. This is a skill. But basically, a thesis statement is the introduction in CAEL. It is the introduction. The thesis statement basically has predictors, these key terms that plan the structure of the essay. And if you're able to write a good thesis statement, you can write a very well organized essay, because the thesis statement basically has a structure already built into it. So if your thesis statement is good, your essay will be good. But if you start with a general idea and then try to descend into something specific, chances are you're going to get off topic. So let's take a look at this question. Here's an example of a thesis statement. Just like in many bird species mentioned in both the reading and lecture, sexual selection is an essential element of human reproduction because it occurs in both male and female preference for both physiological as well as cognitive features. Again, this doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be correct, right? It could be your position as long as it connects with the actual reading. Because you can look at the thesis statement. This thesis statement has a very careful structure. The thesis statement has predictors, and these predictors will then predict the structure of the essay. Here's an example. So this is long writing sample, 350 words. We're kind of running down in terms of time. There's so much content here that we're bringing together. Again, for our audience today, we are going to provide this video to you, so you will have a copy of this recorded session. But you can see is that this thesis statement has a predictor, and this predictor predicts the structure of the essay. So, you know, in this particular predictor, we're talking about male and female preference, both physiological as well as cognitive features. And again, the body paragraph will then follow the structure of the essence. And here we go. We're talking about the listening and the reading in one body paragraph, and maybe listening in one paragraph and reading in another paragraph, right? And that creates a fairly well-structured essay, okay? And this brings us to our Q&A part of our session. So if there are any questions, this is the time.
That was great, Maciej. Thank you.
That was very clear. I loved how the breakdown of the explanation for the essay and the information was. That was fantastic. I mean, there are other elements, obviously, if you're taking classes or if you're reviewing, there are other things that should be taken into consideration, but that's what classes are for. Or if you're doing more reading, the organization of the information or the vocabulary choice that you're using, all that will play into the evaluation. But how you were able to set that up was done very well. That was fantastic.
Well, I always appreciate both of you guys here. And in terms of classes, just a reminder that Summerhill Online Academy provides CAEL preparation every month at the beginning of the month. These are intensive classes. It's 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday, for 4 weeks. And quite honestly, this is the most efficient and shortest amount of time that we can provide for CAEL preparation. This is something that's an undertaking, but it's from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday. We are a official CAEL preparation center for Paragon. All of our teachers are certified CELPIP or CAEL instructors. All of our materials is included, and the entire full course is $650. So if you're interested, you know where to find us. We're Summerhill Online Academy. Register today if you're interested in taking a program that will efficiently prepare you for your future CAEL test. And that's all we have for today.
All right, so we have a question. We have somebody's hand is raised as well as a question. So
Great.
Nora is asking, can we include only 2 paragraphs for the long writing?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and again, Anna really loves the 2 body paragraph idea. You know,
there's no wrong answer here.
It makes complete sense. Yeah, you can just have 2 body paragraphs. I like to include more because for me, I'm looking to score high. I'm not looking to get the minimal score. I want to score high. Most of the students who are studying at Summerhill Online Academy require very high scores, either for immigration, permanent residency, or for ICCRC requirements. Most of our clients that are studying at our school are not looking to score anything lower than a 70. Okay, so I mean, I personally, I haven't tried this approach yet, but I would say that being able to fully extend and provide information and write body paragraphs with a lot of content will most certainly improve your overall score. I've tried doing the CAEL several times. For academic unit A, I usually produce about 400 to 450 words. But I'm able to do that.
It also has to do a lot with your typing skills as well. I think that if you're able to type quick enough and give enough information, that's great. But there are some people who maybe it might be a little bit more of a challenge. So keeping it simple and to the point might be better for you. But I agree with that. So that's great. I'm actually very impressed.
I think Nasser, your hand is raised. Did you want to talk or did you want to type your question in? I gave you the opportunity to speak if you'd like.
Great.
I just know whatever is easier for you.
Nasser, you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you like.
Yeah.
And if anybody else would like to ask a question verbally, just raise your hand and we'll give you the opportunity to do so.
Yep. Don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy. We're not shy people in this.
We've known each other too long not to be shy.
Yeah. And again, we're here for your benefit. No, we can't.
Not yet.
You. No.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you'll have to unmute yourself. Here, let me help.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yep.
Finally, yeah. So I just wanted to be clear. When you say that about the words, 250 words at minimum requirement. So let's say you wrote about 300 words, okay? But if you didn't do well at the beginning, can this extra words help you to gain extra points?
It's quality, not quantity. So just producing words that are outside of the context.
So you just write. You don't.
No, you don't want to just write. You want to answer the question and you want to extend that answer. You want to extend the question. So yeah, you want to be able to extend that question like topically, right? That's really the key.
Okay. Sorry, I'm asking this because I've heard from different instructors saying that you should leave at least 5 minutes to go over your work. So now, okay, I have like up to, let's say, I still have 10 minutes left. Should I use this time to write more if I can, or use it to go back and revise what I had written?
Anna, what do you think?
Well, I would say if you have enough information and you feel comfortable that you've responded to the essay questions correctly and there's enough information, then I would just go back and revise it. But if you feel that there's something missing and you want to add something else, then that would be the time to do it, especially if you have 10 minutes. That's actually fantastic because a lot of people
that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time. Usually you will have 5 minutes. But yeah. I think you're right. Answer is really good because sometimes it depends on the topic. Sometimes you just feel like I can write and write, the idea keeps coming, Yeah. And sometimes you have this topic that you have to think, a lot.
Yeah, and it's sometimes not about extending and writing information about the topic. What you can do, if you have like 10 minutes or even 5 minutes, look through it. Is your topic sentence focused enough for each of your body paragraphs? In your conclusion, do you have a good conclusion statement? And are you producing more ideas? With your introduction, Now that you've completed a thesis statement and you've finished your essay, maybe you can create a better hook. So there are things that you can add to your essay that can make it score higher. Even something as simple as making sure that you're introducing each body paragraph with a unique transition. First of all. Secondly, on the one hand, on the other hand, in conclusion, where are your commas? Where are your periods? How well are you doing with your punctuation? Because punctuation is very important for CAEL as well. So when we're looking, so yeah, it's the quality, not the quantity, but if you have some extra time to spend with your essay, there's quite a lot of things you can do to improve the efficacy of your essay, but it's not always about writing more. It's about proving your point. Do you have enough examples? Can you add another example in your body paragraphs, right? Can you check through your punctuation? Is your grammar okay, right? Simple things that you can do that improves your score hugely from 60 to 70. So I'm not saying write more and more and more. I'm saying write smart, write an organized answer. It's quality, not quantity.
To do so, right?
Right.
Yeah, and adding on to what Maciej is saying, even vocabulary can make a difference. So you have to try to demonstrate a good range of vocabulary, try not to repeat the same language over and over, and hopefully you will have a strong vocabulary to create that variety. So there's so many little elements that will make a difference.
And also for vocabulary, it's about collocations. Depend on, begin with, right? So those collocations, the proper prepositions for the verbs, they actually, in a standardized exam like CAEL, IELTS, or CELPIP, they actually score higher. So you don't want to use vocabulary experimentally. You don't want to just, use vocabulary, academic vocabulary that you know, that you're not perfectly able to use. You actually, yeah. So it's all about collocations.
I have this vocabulary I've never used before, but it's really, really like a unique, or let's say, no common word, So shouldn't I replace it if I find it can give me more points, even though I have never used it before?
Yeah, if you use a vocabulary experimentally and you use it wrong, it hurts your score. It's better to use the vocabulary you know how to use, and the key will be collocations. Collocations. Begin with. Bring up. Depend on. Yeah.
I agree with
accuracy.
I agree with Maciej, because if you're using words that you've never used before just to impress us, that's not going to help you, because if you use it incorrectly, it will affect your score. But if you keep it simple, you're still putting the right information. You are trying to use a variety of different vocabulary words, but the most important thing is the information that you're putting into that. So
yeah.
My motto is always keep it simple, because if you start complicating and then you don't know how to use the vocabulary, then it becomes more challenging for you.
Yeah. My motto is always KISS.
Thank you.
Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Do what you need to do. Score high on this exam, and then move on with your life and your career.
I wish it was that easy. I mean, I mean, it's really, really hard when English is not your first language.
Right.
And no matter how you try, you find out you lack something, some skills. Like for me, it's reading,
Yeah.
and I've never had a way to deal with this, so I just say, okay, whatever comes, I will do it.
Yes, but Nasser, remember, structure is so important for CAEL because it's a standardized exam. So, your level of English, I mean, it's important, but if you're able to fulfill, you can check those little boxes for what CAEL is asking you to do, you can score high. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I've tried twice and they didn't pass, so I don't know. I'll see this time.
All right. Well, I hope this.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that this workshop was very beneficial to me, and I learned a lot, and I hope that I will use it in my next test.
Well, we are always happy to support students, and again, it's always a pleasure with Patrick and Anna. It's always wonderful to do these presentations with them, and we do them because we care about the international student community, and we try to support them in every way whatsoever. So. I hope that everyone who participated today found today's workshop to be useful. Again, we're at Summerhill Online Academy. We provide courses every single month. So if you're really serious about passing CAEL, if you really want to pass the next time, we're always happy to provide these courses at the beginning of each month. And the next start date will be October 4th. So next Monday is the start of the next CAEL course. We also provide CELPIP and as well. And thank you very much, Talat.
Thank you. And thank you, Nasser, for your honesty and your experience, for sharing that with us. That was great.
Yeah. You're most welcome.
Yeah,
well,
we know it's difficult, but keep the faith and do the best that you can and leave it at that. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that goes for everyone. I know that like any type of test will be challenging for people to do, but if you have the right tools with you, you've practiced enough, I mean, you have that little bit of confidence for the test, that will help you tremendously.
So
I just have one last question. Sorry.
Sure.
Can you practice reading?
Can you practice reading?
Yeah, like practice for reading part, like long reading.
Well, absolutely, right? Of course you can. Patrick?
Do you mean like, are we gonna do a webinar?
Yeah, like doing it, like find questions and do it, like going through the let's say previous exams and try to go to the reading section and do it.
So what we do usually at Summerhill, what we usually do is we learn by doing. So one of the big things is that we work in groups. We have small classes of about 6 to 10 students in each class.
Mm-hmm.
We meet each other for 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday, for those 4 weeks. Very intensive.
Yeah.
And we just go through a lot of those reading tests.
So that is in class, like, but I'm in Edmonton. I'm not in Ontario.
No, that's fine. We have students from across Canada, across the
Oh,
world.
okay,
really.
okay.
So we have our classes through Zoom.
You know, I wish I knew this before, and I am not the only one that doesn't. You know, like I was for 2 months. I was struggling looking for tutors, replacing them, firing and hiring them. You know, I never really had a tutor that could specifically teach me how to respond to CAEL questions.
Yeah, I especially find that really frustrating that not enough people know about Summerhill Online Academy, but you know, it's, you know, it just, there you go, spread the word. Summerhill Online Academy exists. We're here.
All right.
We're here to help you.
I will. I think I will spread more after I pass.
Okay, sounds great.
No, just kidding. Yeah. I will tell my friends. You know, I have some. Go ahead, Anna.
And just in case for everybody to know, when you do receive our information one day after this presentation, we will have Maciej's information. So if you would like to try out the classes, or if you prefer to do tutoring one-on-one classes, he does offer that, and you'll have a consultation specifically with Maciej to talk about that, to see what the best option would be for you. So if anybody is interested, you will get that information tomorrow.
And I'm always happy to provide a free one-on-one consultation with anyone who attends these kinds of webinars. So choosing the right option and the right solution. One-on-one is always a great thing, but honestly, there's a lot of drilling and practice that's really necessary for a lot of students. So I feel that again, the course is the best option for most of us if you're looking for CAEL. But in any case, I have taken more than 1 hour of Patrick and Anna's time. It's always a privilege to hang out with these very expert and helpful people. And thank you very much, Patrick and Anna, for helping me to host this webinar. You guys are always wonderful.
A pleasure always to be here. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today as well.
Yep. Hope everybody has a great night and stay safe.
Yeah. Yep. Have a great night, everybody.
Have a nice night.
Enjoy.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody, take care.
Take care. Thank you, Pankai.
Thanks to everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.